Hey, what's going on, Cashflow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and I am here with Michael Isom, who I actually met Michael at an event with Caleb Williams over at the And Asset Mastermind. We connected and just had an amazing conversation. And I just realized in that moment that Michael was somebody that I needed to get on the channel. I needed to get use my platform to expose him to as many people as possible, because he just wrote a book called What We're Worth. And this book, I actually just got done reading it this morning. Since we scheduled this interview, he was awesome enough to priority mail it over to me. And I got to read it over the weekend and finished it just this morning, like I said. And it really is phenomenal. And I'm not going to steal his thunder talking about what the book's about. We'll get into that, I'm sure, as we go. But Michael's been in the financial space. I think you did similar to me. You came and went and whatever. And so it's kind of cool that our stories have similar paths as far as that goes. But if you don't mind, rather than me butchering your bio and your background and your history and all the things you've done, if you could take a couple minutes, and I'd love to hear from you about your background a little bit, how you were in the industry and came back, and then ultimately what inspired this, because this is a super unique book for somebody in our space to write.
Yeah. Chris, thank you. It was great meeting you at Caleb's event in Denver. I told you then, and I told you again this morning prior to starting this, I feel like I've known you for years.
Yeah.
Your personality, your background, and just who you're being as a person. And so I'm honored and excited to share this message. The message in the book, What We're Worth, it's my life message to the world.
Yeah.
It's my legacy to leave, and it's a result of the experiences that I've had. I'm a grandpa. I'm a grandpa now, which is super cool. It's amazing. I didn't come from money. In my senior year of high school, I paid my mom $100 a month rent. And so I started working in 7th grade at Cycletown Yamaha, hence the motorcycle here. It's a big part of my life. In 7th grade, $2.25 an hour. Sweeping floors, washing bikes, and that's how I was able to pay for things that I wanted, and clothes and things in school, dating, motorcycles, of course. And then when I got into college, I took a job to sell cell phones. And it's just a random, thought it'd be a great job, sell cell phones, go to college here in Southern Utah. And my first 30 days, I made $20,000 in 1993.
Holy cow. Selling cell phone plans. And that was for all you youngins out there, that was the very beginning of cell phone plans.
100%. Yeah, the big Motorola brick phones. I remember calling my wife driving down the road going, can you believe I'm talking on the phone and driving in the car? And anyway, that propelled. So my wife and I got engaged. We got married. As I was starting in this career of selling cell phones and going to college, we had our 2 kids. I didn't make no less than 20 grand a month from 1993 to 1999.
Wow.
And that exposed us to real estate investing. I had a VUL at the time that my accountant sold me. He was licensed, and he sold me the VUL.
Okay.
Because that was the thing to have, right? In the 90s, stock market did nothing but go up.
Right.
And so when I left the cell phone industry, I got into the financial services industry because of my ability to make money and my desire to learn about money. And that's when I met Ray Hooper, Les McGuire, and Garrett Gunderson. That was the summer of 2000. And Garrett Gunderson, I'm just chuckling because he was in college and he was wearing these big 3-piece suits and had short hair at the time. And it was a lot of fun. During that time, we're studying all sorts, and that's when I met Kim Butler and Todd Langford. I met them in 2000 when I got into the industry. So I started my golf swing, if you will, with Whole Life, but I wasn't completely converted or I didn't learn everything about it because I was still in this mindset of high risk equals high rate of return and low risk equals low rate of return.
Yeah.
And whole life insurance was just kind of this side thing over here. And one day, Les McGuire, one of my partners in business, came to me and said, hey, I've got this real estate investment with Investor Guy. And long story short, I'm I'm dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash into this high risk investment that was paying me 5% a month, Chris.
Sounds a lot like the crypto things that have been happening recently that people have been getting destroyed on.
I can laugh about it now, but back then, what came from that was putting more and more money in, making it available to my clients that put money in there. And over several years, we had over $10 million, and we kept getting our checks every month on this 5% a month.
Oh, wow.
Until August, September of 2007, no checks.
Of 2007. So right at September 07, that's like right when the crisis, the recession kind of like started kicking off, right?
Yep. No checks, investor guys not taking my calls. And so I started liquidating my bank accounts and my assets, and I'm paying my clients their interest each month on their cash for 4 months. And during that time, I get a call, and on the other line is a gentleman that says, "Hi, this is Special Agent Mark Smith from the FBI."
Oh, no.
That's not a call you ever want to get.
That's not a good call.
And long story short, I'm signing a deal with the feds, and I'm taping a wire to my chest to meet with investor guy to find out where all this money went, but it's too late because it's all gone.
Oh my gosh.
Completely gone.
So
that was the end of 07.
Oh my.
08, 09, 2010, I did not work.
Okay.
I did live off of my cash value, my whole life insurance policy.
Okay.
Saving grace.
Yep.
And October of 2010, I hear a knock at our front door, and I open it up early in the morning. It's my in-laws there to move Wendy and the kids out because I was not healthy to be around. I was drinking excessively. I was just a complete asshole to be around. I was taking narcotic pain pills to numb myself out from the pain of everything that I'd been through, losing that money, and literally dozens of my clients losing their money. Chris, I ended up losing $4.8 million of my family's life savings, which was everything that we had except for the few $100,000 in our whole life insurance policy. Thank God. And so 12 hours later, my family's out of the house. 80% of the furniture is gone, and I'm alone, and I'm freaking out. And this is a pivotal moment in my life where I'm on the bathroom floor and I'm screaming to God, why, God, why? My nose is bleeding. There's snot streaming out of my nose. And I load a bullet into a 9mm Ruger P89 pistol, and I press it up against the roof of my mouth, finger on the trigger, ready to take my life over losing all that money and having so many of my clients lose all that cash. When I felt a rush come over my body that I hadn't felt before, and I sat the gun down carefully, and I pictured my kids, and I promised to God in that moment and myself that I would extract the lessons that led to me pushing all my chips on the table and that bad investment, and then why I felt so worthless as a result of losing all of that cash, to actually stick a gun in my mouth ready to take my life, because I had large life insurance policies on my life, and I was past the 2-year suicide clause. I knew it. I was clear that they would, for the most part, pay out and take care of my family economically, because I felt worthless.
Yeah.
So when I sat the gun down, I went to work. I called Garrett Gunderson because we were business partners prior. He watched me go through all of that. And he said this to me, among lots of other people that poured into my life during that time, because I started seeking that. He said, Michael, you can choose to leverage your past experiences to create moving forward. And so that stuck with me. And then I started reading this book. I reached out to Kim Butler during that time.
Okay.
And I asked her if she would mentor me and assist me with my mindset and my belief system. And from that, I'm happy to report, actually, after 45 days of my family moving out, I moved back in with them because I sobered up.
Nice.
And my wife and I will celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. And I mentioned this year, and I mentioned that I'm a grandpa. I got to watch the birth of our son, or our grandson, just over a year ago with our daughter.
That's awesome.
And to think that I almost took my life and wouldn't be here for that. But why I wrote the book are the life lessons that I extracted from that whole experience, applied in my life, and that I'm so passionately just sharing with clients today on a daily basis. Because from 2011, the beginning of 2011 through 2018, Chris, I earned back all that cash that I had lost applying what's in my book.
That's amazing.
And the clarity that I gained around that.
That's amazing. So let's talk about that for a sec, because you talk about like one of the phrases, and it says right on here, realize your human life value and know what you're really worth, right? So can you just, before getting into that, and I want to ask a couple things about the book and try not to spoil it for people, but the what does human life value mean to you? You know, for like if people are just watching this for the first time and they've, you know, and they don't watch the content a lot or haven't seen stuff, like, talk to me about the importance of human life value, but more importantly, the importance of really understanding what that means and internalizing what that means.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you. I'm excited to share this. This is a core message in the book because it's a core life lesson that I learned. We all know if we're in finance or money, or we own our own business, or, you know, in our own personal financial life, we are familiar with a balance sheet, an income statement and a balance sheet. And on a financial balance sheet, we have assets and we have liabilities. Most basic example of an asset on a financial balance sheet, property value balance sheet. Let's say a home. Let's say you have a value of a home that's $1 million, but the liability, the mortgage against it is $500,000. Assets minus liabilities, the equity equals $500,000 on a property value balance sheet.
Right.
Next to a property value balance sheet, we all have what I call a human life value balance sheet, where there's assets and there's liabilities on our human life value balance sheet. Human life value assets are things like our knowledge, our expertise, our education, our morals, our values. A line item on the human life value balance sheet, Chris, is relationship capital. I called Garrett Gunderson. I called Kim Butler. I called Garrett White. I called people that were in my life that were watching me go through that, because I had put my self-worth, my value as a human, on my property value balance sheet. And when I lost everything financially, I felt worthless. I wasn't aware or giving attention to the more important human life value assets in my life. Relationship capitals, my knowledge, my experiences, my faith. Human life value is the source and the creator of all property value. So if we want to create more wealth, we want to create more value in the marketplace, we want to have more whole life insurance, we want to have more assets, we want more real estate, whatever we want property value wise, it starts with human life value. There's not good investments, there's only good investors.
That's good.
Right? Garrett Gunderson taught me that and reminds people of that on a daily basis. So everything starts with our human life value. And so I get the most excited about, that's why I'm starting to speak a little bit faster. I get the most excited about the concepts around human life value. And before you hit record, that's exactly what you and I were doing. We were talking about human life value assets. We were talking about the liabilities, which are limiting beliefs, stories, things that we're conscious of and not conscious of, as we were talking about, that run our life. And so it's, how do we take those liabilities, turn them into assets? How do we leverage those assets more on our human life value balance sheet to take to the world as value creation in exchange with them? And dollars follow value. So if we're creating value and exchanging with people, one of the ways that we know if that's valuable to someone else is the dollar or that receipt of a dollar that they give us. So that's that whole concept of human life value. People are assets, things are not. These computers that we're staring into, these cameras, the home that you're in, the monitor behind you, the home that I'm in, have no value whatsoever until we or another human gives it value.
Exchange. Yeah.
So people are assets, things are not. Human life value is the source and creator of all property value. So wouldn't it make sense to put more emphasis on this human life value balance sheet?
Yep. So can I play devil's advocate?
For sure.
Because like you and I are 100% aligned on this, but I want to kind of come from because I say things like this all the time, and a lot of times people will make a comment, you know, or a YouTube comment, and so I want to hear your response because I've given my response plenty of times. Is like that idea that you're saying where like people are assets, kind of changes like when people hear that, I guess, and I'm trying to think about how they would make the statement or what their comment is, but it's basically like you're trying to like turn relationships into transactions, right? Like everything become and to me they get it way wrong. But when you when we talk about like, all right, money follows value, human life value, if you start like focusing on like the way I say it is like value is a one-way street, right? You're either giving it or extracting it. You can't do both at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? And from that perspective, what I try to do is just say, I'm always just going to try to give value and give value above and beyond expectation and give value without expectation of reciprocity, right? And just have faith that if I do that enough in enough areas with the right people, that it will all work out, you know, like, and I try to control the activity and the action and the people and like that I'm doing it with. But a lot of people, when I've said that before, some people have come to me and said, hey, Chris, like that's very transactional because now you're trying to take a relationship with a guy named Michael Isom. And just because you think Michael and you, or that Michael eventually might have something of value to add to you, you're going to go out there and you're going to just like give to Michael, like, and that's like, in a way they see that as transactional and there's judgment behind that, right? Like to me, to you, like it makes all the sense in the world. But like, what's your response in a way on that side of it and the emotional? Because to me, that's one of those things when you say a limiting belief, right? Like that's going to hold them back because it's not about like if you and I are developing this relationship, right? Like, I mean, we don't know each other that well at the end of the day. We have a lot in common. You know, there's no expectation of, I don't think from either of us to the other person, right? Like, but who knows how it develops, right? And all we can do is control what we can control. Like, I don't know that, like, I don't know if that all makes sense, but what are your thoughts about all that? And like people's limitations behind that mindset?
Yeah. So I had maybe a dozen thoughts come up as you were saying all of that. I'll see if I can pick a few of them. Number one, is it working or not working? So if someone is saying that, where are they at in their life? What experiences have they had that led them to form that belief that that's all that's taking place? Because I said to you in Denver, with not even knowing who you were or what you did, that I would even be on your show with you or any of that. I said, man, it feels like I know you.
Yeah.
So I believe that we vibrate a certain energy with our actions and our output of, are we a giver or a taker in our life? And so what's our intent behind that? And I think we can, the more we live that we're just going to give and give and give and have faith. Now, faith without action is dead, right? So we put in the systems and the processes, and I believe I want my clients to pay me because they'll get more out of what they're doing with me if they have skin in the game. So there's that also with that. But yeah, I want to give and give and give with the faith that dollars will follow that, or something else. Maybe it's not the dollar that they exchange with. It could be something in a relationship or something down the road or something like that. But I also believe that it's okay to want what you want. And there's a difference between self-interest and selfishness.
Go deeper.
We can
on that.
tell when someone's being selfish. And they're just takers. But we can also, I believe, if we're acting this way ourselves, we can feel and sense into if someone is truly a giver and they're being abundant with things. I met a gentleman that I believe you know also in Denver, and he messaged me yesterday and he said, hey, I ordered you 20 of your books and I'm having them sent to you. And I'm like, what? You ordered 20 of my books off of Amazon, you're having them sent to me? And he says, yeah, I want you to give them away. I know you have a whole bunch of them. And I'm like,
That's amazing.
wow,
That's
that's freaking
amazing.
awesome.
That is
Right?
awesome.
So
Yeah.
it's okay to want what we want.
Yeah.
Because when we know what we want, we're clear about it, and we lead with the value and we fulfill those wants, we have more to offer to those around us.
Yep.
You
Totally.
being successful, Chris, allows so many other people to benefit from the work that you're doing. It's not free to do what you do.
Right.
It's not free for me to do what I do. Right.
Yep.
But I believe at the end of all that, people can tell, and especially with their life experience. And so, I don't know if we were recording this before or not, but we talked about how mentors, find someone that you want to be like and emulate their life, and ask them to mentor you.
Before I continue here, I'm going to have my editor clip this out a little bit. Can you hear the landscaper in the back? My next door neighbor's landscaper just got here. Is the microphone blocking it out? Okay.
No, I can't hear it, but can you hear the thunder and lightning?
No. So it's good. So we're good. We both got background noise that the technology, speaking of technology, that's value. That's worth it. It's blocking it all out. We're good. All right, rock and roll. So that's, I mean, oh man, I love the, I just love the synergies that we have in the way that we kind of see things. And what I find, and you talked about it, where like, it's the vibration and the level and the focus and like, how people are looking to show up. And I loved going to Caleb's event, the And Asset Mastermind event. And I think anybody that's in this business should go to that event every single year.
I agree.
Because, there were 100, 110 people, 120 people in the room.
Most abundant event I've been to in years.
Totally. And it's most abundant event, and probably the most, if you were looking at the success metric and like per capita, more success in that room than any event probably of the year. Like it was amazing, but it's not a coincidence that you look at the vibration level that everybody's operating at, and then the average level of success of everybody in the room. And it all comes, it all starts to make sense. So let me ask you this, because you are a licensed life insurance agent. You are a believer in whole life insurance. Is that fair to say?
Yes, okay. I am.
Because I talk a lot about index universal life. I talk a lot about whole life insurance. I talk a lot about personal finance. And I know before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about this stuff. Talk to me about why you believe so much in whole life insurance, not because of whole life insurance, the product, but because of how it aligns with what people want, and I don't like using the word need. I like want.
Yep. And this is part of the lessons that I extracted, that I applied in my life, that I share with every client.
Yeah.
And so I want to work with clients that love what they do.
Yeah.
And there's not enough time in the day for them to do what they're doing, right? That's yourself. That's me. I would say most everyone at Caleb's event. That's why there's that energy level that we felt there.
Yep.
And I created this concept called the AIS triangle: number one asset, number one investment, number one strategy. You are your number one asset. That's that whole conversation of the human life value balance sheet. Every client hears this from me. They buy this first, the AIS triangle, or we don't meet, we don't meet again. We don't work together.
Sure.
So number one asset is you. The whole human life value creates property value. That whole conversation, we talk about legacy planning to leave both to their family, not just the property value, but the more important human life value. So money's a blessing, not a curse in their lives, that whole conversation. So that's number one asset. Number one investment. And this leads us to number one strategy, which is the whole life insurance. But number one investment has two main characteristics: control and human life value. What you control, Chris, what you have the most knowledge and expertise in, these are your human life value assets. What you have the most purpose and passion in, especially with what you're doing in the core message that you're broadcasting across the nation and world, really. What you control what you have the most knowledge and expertise and purpose and passion is where I want my clients to invest. So let's talk about investing and let's talk about saving. Tony Robbins, I went to his Unleash the Power Within, had my family, my wife, my 2 kids, my assistant Lacey. It was in Dallas, Texas. It was in like 2017, 2018. 8,000 people in the room, chanting, screaming, all go out and walk on fire.
Yep.
It was incredible.
Yep.
And one of the things that I learned from that are 4 basic needs of every human. It's a need. We will fulfill these one way or another, either consciously or subconsciously. So be aware of them, be purposeful in them. Certainty, uncertainty, significance, and love. Those are the 4 basic needs of every human. And if someone listening to this or watching this, like, I'm not sure, test it. Test any of this. Find out for yourself. Uncertainty is variety and risk. It's a basic need for you and I and everyone else that's alive today to have some uncertainty or variety and risk in our lives, personally and professionally. If we go to the personal side, our marriage, if we're not continually working on that and we get bored in that area, we start looking for the solution outside of our marriage. Same with our money side of life. So when I'm working with a business owner, I want them to see clearly more than ever before that their ability to produce in their core business at the highest level is where they ought to invest and double down. They control it. They have knowledge and expertise in that area. You meet with any business owner that loves what they do. They're like, well, yeah, right. I have this client that just sold his company for $100 million. And now he's going to go and start another company and do this and do that, because he sees that what he controls and has knowledge and expertise in and purpose and passion is where he ought to be taking risk. Me writing this book is risky. You doing what you do and putting yourself out there is risky. I just expanded my office and put this recording studio here in and all the soundboard, 40, 50 grand in, all that is risky for me to do that, but I control it. I have knowledge and expertise in that area, and I'm going to 100 times my rate of return on that. So when clients come to me and I start meeting with them, one of the questions is, where do I invest? You invest money because investing has risk, some uncertainty to it. You invest in things that you control and have knowledge and expertise in. That's in yourself and people, in your own business, in your own career. And then when you relinquish control of your cash, that's number 1 strategy. And that's why we use whole life insurance, because it's the only product that has guarantees, creditor protection, depending on the state that you live in or the way that you structure it. And liquidity. GPL, guaranteed protected liquid. The only product that meets that criteria is whole life insurance. That's why we use it. It stood the test of time. So I want my clients to build big business, build in their career at the highest level. That's the area to take risk. And maybe they're into real estate investing. Well, if they are and they have knowledge and expertise in that area, that's where they ought to invest. Where they save is whole life insurance, because that savings gives them the permission mentally to continue to produce and create at the highest level in their area of expertise. Chris, I don't know. And again, I want everybody to test this, and I'm excited about it because it's what saved my ass from where I was to where I'm at today. I don't know of anything more efficient to invest in yourself and in things you control and have knowledge and expertise in, and then save money over here. So big business, big savings.
Well, so oh my gosh, I just had so many thoughts as you were talking. So here I do a thing called the Life 180 pyramid. I do a talk, and people can look it up. I've got some videos on it, but the whole idea is, and I talk about this, I mean, almost every meeting that I have with people, the importance of financial structure over the assets that we invest in or save, right? And that is everything. I mean, you can go look at Warren Buffett. Like, what makes Warren Buffett Warren Buffett? The difference between somebody that focuses on structure of their finances And that's where we start talking about what is structure. And that's what the pyramid is you have to build your foundation of safety. If you don't build a foundation of safety and have liquid, safe, guaranteed capital available for emergency, for opportunity, for any of that, you're not, I got news for you. You could have all the money in crypto. You could feel like a millionaire on paper. You could be a millionaire on paper, but you're not an investor, you're a speculator. And you're at more risk and you're more unstable than, and you probably aren't focused on the rest of the important things in life and haven't prioritized things in a way that's gonna truly be in alignment with your values and your beliefs, right? Like
100%.
And what I find is that if we focus on structure, and this is why I love, and a lot of people are like, why do you focus on whole life and why do you beat up IUL? It goes back to the control thing that you're talking about, and it goes to the predictability. And it's no different than the economy or politics or economics in general. Certainty is the biggest driver of growth, right? Like we all need an element of certainty. And when we know that we have an asset and a foundation that is certain that we can rest upon, it gives us permission to take risks in other areas. And the coolest part about it is that if just by going through the process of building that foundation, you're going to become somebody different than you are right now. 100%. To be able to take better swings and to be able to take better risks and do it in a more educated way.
Yeah, but take those risks where you have control, knowledge, expertise, purpose, and passion.
Yes.
Don't take risk in areas where you give up control, have no knowledge, no expertise, no purpose or passion. Right. That's IUL.
Exactly.
That's Wall Street. And too many people are gambling and speculating in those areas. And the effect in their life is sticking a gun in their mouth, cheating on their spouse, being totally disconnected with their family, no pursuit or even thought process around the human life value balance sheet. It's all around the property value balance sheet. And they wonder why they're so feeling like shit on a daily basis and feeling worthless in life.
Yeah.
Hollow, shallow.
I know. It's
disconnected.
It's interesting to me. And you said I wasn't going to go here, but like now I have to because you said it. But like the IUL stuff, like the control, like the lack of control. I think the ironic part about it is IUL is easy to sell because on an illustration it looks really good all the time. Like it just does. Like there's no, but it doesn't work that way. And the challenge is, how is IUL sold? IUL is sold as like this 401k alternative for tax-free income and retirement. I mean, that is the predominantly, I would say 95 to 99% of the sales are based on that one conversation. So the idea is like, hey, Michael, you've got all this money in a 401k or an IRA, like look at the taxes, look at all this thing, and look at the government risk and look at all the taxation risk and the political risk and all these things. You should move that money over into your IUL. You're going to get tax-free income. And you're going to have, and they try to sell you that you have more control, but you don't have more control. All you're doing is shifting the control from the government to the insurance company. And a lot of people are like, well, the insurance company's been doing this forever. Well, yeah, they have with whole life insurance. And when you're with a participating mutually held whole life company and have a participating mutually held policy, you are effectively a shareholder. When you have an IUL, make no mistake about it, you are a profit center for the company, period.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the company is going to try to screw you as the policyholder, because that is not their intent. I will not, but life happens. Economic cycles happen. Look, if you want to know how IUL companies are going to treat their policyholders moving forward, look at how they treated the traditional UL policyholders and the VUL policyholders from the 80s and 90s. And that'll tell you what's going to happen to you as an IUL policyholder going into the future. And
I love that you're so educated on it. You did say something that I want to add to.
Yeah.
You said if you look at an IUL illustration, it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you get your client, which is exactly what I do. And it's the only thing I have to do to get them to do something different than the IUL. I first ask them, how long did the agent tell you for you to pay into this? And they're like, oh, well, tell them 60 or 65 and then I retire. And I said, okay, so you're going to stop paying into it at that time. And then what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to take income from it. That's the way they sold it to me. I said, okay, great. Go get an illustration, an in-force illustration that shows you stopping at 60 or 65 and then taking money from it. And let's come back and have a conversation about that. That's the only thing that I've had to do for them to see that they don't work.
They don't. And you're 100% right.
Because those illustrations don't look good at all.
100%. And I actually just had a really big conversation with somebody about this yesterday, somebody that has a big policy. And, you know, when you start taking income out in retirement, it changes the game. I mean, the problem is a lot of people that are selling IUL will sell it as this cheaper version of whole life insurance. But the problem with IUL is you're never paying it up. Like, it is never paid off. It is annual renewable term until the day you die. And so when you're in retirement, I don't, for most people, that if you're buying IUL as a retirement alternative, like a retirement vehicle, income vehicle for retirement, it doesn't matter what if you buy it when you're 40, it doesn't matter what it does for you between 40 and 60. It matters what it does for you between 60 and 90, right? Or when you die. And when we look at it like that, like and my passion comes because I know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen, and what it looks like. But people don't understand it. And by the time they do understand it, it's going to be too late. And I think we're going to have millions of people that are really hurt by that product. And I worry about the trickle-down effect of what it's going to do to the industry and regulation on what we do and our ability to actually serve people, you know, because, you know, it's challenging.
Yeah, 100%. And I've listened to a lot of your stuff, and I love it. I love hearing you go off. I loved hearing you go off in Denver on this. I'm like, yes, this is beautiful. I love it. But when I'm talking with a client about AIS, number one asset, number one investment, number one strategy, the characteristics that they're buying first before we even mention whole life or any product is guaranteed, protected, and liquid.
Totally.
Because that guaranteed, protected, liquid cash gives them permission, like you were just talking about, to double down, to triple down, to quadruple down on themselves and in their area of expertise, their career and their business. I just met with a client yesterday, annual review. His business grew by 20% this year to date. He controls that. He has knowledge and expertise in that area, purpose and passion. And another characteristic of the whole life insurance is the death benefit and the legacy planning, because the married businessmen with kids that I work with, they more than ever before want to leave a financial legacy.
Totally.
98%+ of my clients are first generational wealth, and it empowers them to set up their estate planning that will live. That's why Garrett Gunderson and I wrote the book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? We talk about legacy planning. It's empowering, Chris, for you and I and our married businessmen with kids clients to have that sort of planning. They're going to leave something. They don't know when they're going to die. So let's be strategic about it and leverage that in our life today. I told you when I had a gun in my mouth, I pictured my kids. A married businessman with kids, his biggest why in his life is his family. It's his wife and kids. So it's being even more deliberate about that and leveraging that with their overall financial plan.
Well, and that's, you know, with Life 180, it's an acronym, living intentionally for excellence. And it always has to start, you know, the Stephen Covey, start with the end in mind, right? Like the 7 habits of highly effective people is like, if you understand what's important to you and what's driving you, then you can reverse engineer the life that you want to live. And we get out of this conversation about product and illustrations and, you know, numbers on a spreadsheet, because I got news for you. Life doesn't exist on a spreadsheet, everybody, right? Like it like, you know, we know this in sales. I mean, when we start talking about things, like, people make decisions emotionally and they validate those decisions with logic. And like the challenge is people try to sell logic, right? And like, but and we were talking about this a little bit before, but it's the ant and the elephant conversation. I talk about this in some videos, is like the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. And, you know, if we tap into why we're doing what we're doing, and we really understand like what we're trying to create and why we're doing it for our family, now we can reverse engineer a strategy to help us fill in the gap. Because make no mistake about it, you are where you are, you know, where, if you get clarity on where you want to go and you're honest with yourself about where you are, let's get real with that, right? Like, you got to be, you know, both.
Where am I?
You're right. You got to know both. And now we can fill the gap in, right? And now it's not about like, should I buy an IUL or should I buy a whole life policy or should I invest in the stock market or should I do this or that or whatever? It's a matter of like, what's in a line, like where I am. Okay, that's just like the barometer for just clarity about what we have, like what the launching pad is, but knowing what the life we want to create is. Now it just becomes like, all right, all my values, all my beliefs, all my actions, everything I pour into life and my family and my business and my investments and my money and my time and relationship capital, all these things, that all becomes so much more focused. And now I'm not worried about all this stuff. I'm just thinking about like, how do I fill these holes? How do I fill this gap? And what are the attributes that I need to come into my life? And I think when people start looking at it, that's how we work our way into whole life. It's not because we're like, it's just this thing. It's just all the attributes and all the different needs. And because if you're 40, I'm 43, and I've got another, whatever, I don't ever plan on retiring, but like, let's say I've got a 12-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old now, right? And like, they're all growing, and my life is going to change over the next 20 years. I'm going to go through different phases of life. My needs, my wants, my whatever are going to change and evolve. And like, so how do you create a system that you are in control of, that you can keep evolving with? You know what I mean? Rather than just be stagnant. What are your, like, elaborate on your thoughts?
I totally agree with all of that, because you're controlling it. You have the knowledge and expertise in that area. But when you're saying that, I was talking about values. It's like, you get clear on where you're at. Well, where am I, and what do I want, and what are the core values? Like, one of the things that I talk with all my clients about are what are the values and the principles that they're living by, and are they clear about that? Because when we're clear about that, we can then have the things that come in and support that in our life. And whole life insurance is the only product that we can put cash in that supports those core values of the client, of what I live by, Chris, what you live by. That's why that whole energy and feeling that we got when we met, we started talking, that we live by, and everybody else in that room. But the clients that I want to work with, we share those core values and those principles. And so it's like, that's the only product that supports those core values and principles to live by. That are time tested. 200 years old.
So what do you say? I'm just curious, because I always like to hear other people's perspectives on this. Like, what do you say to somebody when they come to you and they're like, yeah, Michael, that's all good, but like, somebody told me this about IUL, that IUL is just an enhanced, better version of a whole life policy.
I laugh. Well, Chris,
I just laugh at them.
I have not heard that yet.
You haven't? Oh, I hear it every day.
I haven't. I haven't heard that yet. But what I always go back to is AIS. Because they've bought into number one asset, number one investment, number one strategy. Does IUL have the characteristics of what they say they wanted? Because every client, in order to move forward with me, says they want AIS in their life. So we're going to measure that against their 401k, their IRA, maybe some real estate investments that they have, or crypto, or whatever else that they have money in outside of their career and their own business. And if it doesn't fit with AIS, then the natural answer is no.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. I love it because it's a very simplified version of kind of what I would do. I have this like deep passion kind of on the topic because of my personal background and story. And stuff. I get really like flared up about that conversation, right? Like, so I try to like, I kind of go against my own coaching sometimes, and I get like all fired up and try to get people to see it, like really fast and all this stuff. But man. Well, so here's the deal. Like, I think everybody should get this book. Like, because of everything we're talking about, I think, I talk about the book, The Ant and the Elephant, all the time, because I love it, because it's a fable. It's a way to get a concept of the power of the conscious mind and subconscious mind, and like, why we do what we do, and really understanding how not just why we think what we do, but how we actually live and how we make our decisions, and like how the day-to-day kind of impacts us. And like, this is, I think you did an amazing job, because you turn it into a story.
Thank you.
And I think, I'm sitting there reading it, like looking at my wife, like, and honestly, like, my story is not as extreme as yours, or as the characters that you put together in the story here. But we all have our story, right? Like, everybody. I'm a true believer, like, it's all relative. And And I would say, like, if you haven't experienced a lot of hardship or like challenges or those moments that make you feel like you're on the edge and make you feel like you're questioning, like, I would argue that you're probably not taking, like, you're not going after it hard enough in a way, like, because like you're just, I don't know, or maybe you and I are just crazy. I don't know. But like
there's a lot of other crazies out there.
yeah, exactly. But I would say, like, I was reading this and I was like, wow. And I was just like, I don't know if I want my wife to read this. She's probably going to be like remembering all the crap we went through. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess it'll be good. But I'm going to make her, or have her, no, she'll read it. She'll be happy to read it. But I just really think the perspective is good for people, because I think a lot of times we get really caught up. I do this. I don't know if you do this still, but I still do this, where sometimes I have to like take a step back,
Yeah.
we start going down paths, and like the more success you have, the more opportunity you have, and you kind of start getting all over the map. And like, I think it's really key to surround yourself with good people that can hold you accountable, and business partners and people that you trust, that can hold a mirror up for you. And like, sometimes you got to like look around and keep the core, the focus, especially when we're talking about human life value and like the things that we're talking about, like keep your focus and interest on the areas that your value is the highest. And yeah, we all want to, start branching out and doing different things. And like, that's the variety, right? That's the human need, right? Is what the
but be clear about where you're going to take that.
Yes.
And so as you're saying that, Chris, we come together, we remind our clients, we remind each other. We want to be reminded, and we want to remind others.
Yes, exactly.
And there's just, and so I went through that suffering. You've gone through your own suffering.
Yep.
People listening have their own suffering. Perspective determines action.
Yep.
What perspective, what are they clear about the life lessons? Are they clear about the principles and the values that they are living by, that they want to live by, that they want to have in their life? Are they clear about that? Because too many people are suffering out there today because they're not clear about that. And they want to have this in their life, and they don't know where to turn. They don't know what to have guide them. And that's my life mission, is to share that and to assist people with getting clear and assist them with that clarity so they can live by it and have that in their life. And more importantly, not only for their own life, but that they pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is watching this video that is struggling right now and kind of feeling helpless or hopeless and feeling in that place of just kind of rock bottom, if you will, like, because you've been there, and this talking about like what steps can they take to move forward?
Yeah. I would invite them to have a conversation with someone, myself, someone else that they look up to, and to share what they're going through. That's what I did. I picked up the phone and I called Garrett Gunderson. I called Kim Butler, and I called people that I looked up to, and I just started sharing with them, and they started pouring into me. Yeah. And Chris, I'll share this. Garrett Gunderson and I were business partners from 2000 to 2007. Yeah. Our two business partners that we had, Ray and Les, died in a tragic plane crash June 8th of 2006. They were in St. George visiting me that day when they were on their flight back to northern Utah.
Oh, man.
And they crashed and died, the pilot and my two business partners. So Garrett and I lived through that. We did everything we could to keep their office location together. We ended up shutting it down. Garrett kept his, he took it back. I took mine back because we had merged them all together. He watched me go through that whole experience. And I owed him $18,000 in that experience, and I didn't have it. And so I would pay him $500 at a time, $100 at a time, $50 at a time, until I paid him back the 18 grand. And he has shared this story from stage before, talking about relationship capital. And I did it because of my principle, my approach to life and what I was learning and going through in that relationship that I had with him. It was months later, almost a year later, that he said, hey, why don't you come into my office and start working with some leads that we're generating here at Freedom Fast Track before it became Wealth Factory. And I said, yeah, I think I could do that. I kept my licenses. And so he started sending me a few leads of people that made up to $75,000 a year. And I started working with them and helping them. And then he started pouring into me and I started pouring into him. And next thing you know, a year and a half later, he's sending me every lead from that office.
That's amazing, man.
And that just helped launch things. And then we wrote the book, What Would the Rockefellers Do? And that took off. And now this book that I'm so passionate about sharing, because again, too many people are suffering, tying their self-worth to their financial balance sheet instead of seeing their human life value balance sheet, and the emphasis, and they're not mutually exclusive. If you put more into your human life value balance sheet, you'll actually create more property value in your life.
Yeah. I mean, it creates, it just, you know, the property value. I mean, you just said it that way. I love it. I always kind of say it like this, is like, if you create more human life value, it just opens up opportunity through those relationships, right? Like there's a reason that the most successful people in the world, and I'm not just talking about financially, just the most successful people with the best networks and the best people, you know,
the healthiest people,
there you go. That's the way they have the most opportunity, you know, because the more you focus on human life value, the more opportunity opens up. And this is one of my favorite phrases in success is, you know, or to be successful, that I use all the time, is you have to be willing to go slow to go fast.
100%.
And too many people in this country, and we're trained on this microwave mindset that we want to go and we want to put money into Bitcoin and just like, you know, we're going to be rich, you know, like that. And that's just, it's sad, because that's, unfortunately, because of this crypto craze and all the things that are happening right now, there's this like boom. And I think a lot of people are going to get hurt through it, not because crypto is bad, but because the principles are out of whack.
We didn't touch on this, Chris, and you just sparked this in my mind. The character in the book, David Shawcross, he got bored.
Yes.
He got bored. Yes. He got bored in his core business, and he wasn't fulfilling that uncertainty, that risk and variety. Just like if we get bored in our marriage, if I had a core belief, and I don't know where the hell it came from, but growing up, I had this core belief when I got married that after 15 years of being married to Wendy, I would know everything about her, she'd know everything about me, and we wouldn't argue anymore.
Okay.
15 years came and went, and we're still colliding. And then my story went to, she must not be the one.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And so I started believing that, and you can tell how that showed up in our relationship, until I changed my story to, I'm going to date Wendy the rest of my life. Now we're going to be celebrating 30 years in December, and we have all these amazing things going on because of that mindset shift. So David Shawcross on the book, he got bored. If anybody listening to this is getting bored and they don't know why, it's because they're not challenging themselves. We thrive on challenging ourselves. We feel the most alive when we're striving towards something, when we're building, when we have that variety, that risk going on. But again, take risk in an area where you have control, knowledge, expertise, purpose, and passion. I'm not saying don't take risk. I want my clients to take risk, but in a certain area. And I want them to continually challenge themselves personally and professionally, because it's what fulfills them the most, and it's what creates the most for those around them.
I love it. That's amazing. I mean, and so that, guys, is why you need to get this book, because it basically pitches that whole conversation, and I promise, like, and it shares the story of what it can look like. And like I said, I've got my own story. This story in here is a bit more extreme than my personal, but I will say one of the things that you did a great job with is, as extreme as this story is, it still connected with me, right? Cool. And I was able to like see circumstances that he would go through and thoughts that he would have, and conversations with his wife and his kids. And I remember being like, even though my situation wasn't as bad, so to speak, it was on a smaller scale, dude, but it brought tears to my eyes. I remember having I remember making some bad decisions, you know, and for me, and I'm just going to be real vulnerable and real here for a sec. Like, one of the things for me, and I guess I'll say this, one of my favorite quotes that I use is, just because the ostrich buries his head in the sand doesn't mean the lion's dinner plans have changed. Right. And for me, that was my my Achilles heel, if you will, or my challenge personally. And it's still something, quite frankly, that I deal with, right? And that I have to get past. And I have to work really diligently and surround myself with people that hold me accountable. And I've given my wife permission to hold me accountable. And we've like changed our relationship through this. Because in past, what would happen is, you know, I'm very, very focused and hard driving and very active and do my thing and like whatever. But then what would happen is sometimes something would come through and I would need to deal with it, but it wouldn't be my priority. And I just like, doesn't exist.
Bury the head in the sand.
You bury the head in the sand,
still there.
right? Exactly. And before you know it, you just think it's not a problem and it kind of disappears, right? It's kind of like a legal notice, right? Like it's there and you're like, whatever, no big deal. But then before you know it, you're being served and you got to deal with something. And it's like, it should have never been an issue, right? Like if you just, and like that causes challenges with trust. It causes challenges with yourself, and it's a distraction and it's extra cost, it's inefficiency. And like, and so like, it's interesting because like everybody's got their own thing, right? And his thing was different than my thing. But there's nobody that's immune to this. And that's why I have no problem sharing my vulnerabilities and weaknesses, because like, I got news for you. If you're going to judge me over mine, I'm going to hold up, and you got plenty, like anybody's got plenty of their own, you know what I mean? 100%. And I'm totally open about it. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, I care. I work super hard at trying to be intentional about dealing with it, you know? But this is stuff that I think I would encourage everybody when you're reading this to think about it and to like read it slowly. Right. And like, think about your relationships and think about your own conversations and your own experiences. And even if your issues are different, what are the relatable things? Because the conversations, as different as my situation is, the conversations were very similar. So that could be like, I just thought that was really cool. So I want to commend you on that. So, so how do people get this book?
Amazon.
We
have it on Amazon. Right now we have it in hardback, softback. We have it on Kindle. We'll have the audio out here in the next few weeks. But I'd love for your listeners to pick up a copy, to incorporate it into their own life, to share it with others. And give us some feedback on it too. I'd love that.
I love it, man. Well, I'll put the link to the Amazon, to the book listing in the description below, guys. So if you want to go down below, make it really easy for you, just click on the link. It'll bring you right to Amazon. And do that, obviously. So I would suggest everybody to go do it, because it's amazing. Where can everybody connect with you? Are you on this is how little we've like talked about this. Like, are you what's your social media like? I mean, I saw you have a YouTube channel, but you don't like have a lot of people that follow, and it looks like you're more you got a lot of your like off-roading, dirt bike, extreme kind of stuff, which, by the way, I'm in Arizona. I have a Jeep and I love off-roading and I love St. George. So we got to go off-roading sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. My son and I are headed out this weekend.
I love it.
Yeah. Michael G. Isom. So the name on my book on Instagram, Facebook, and then vaultais.com. Vault AIS is my homepage. And I have some videos and things on there that people can check out if they want to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, I would really encourage everybody to go check out Michael, follow him. Are you on Instagram?
Yes.
You are. So follow him on Instagram, check him out on YouTube. I'll put the links to all your social handles down below, just to make it really easy for everybody. Anything else you want to cover or say? I know this has gone pretty long. It's been a lot of fun for me, and we're going to have fun again.
Yeah, Chris, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. I'm just super passionate about the core message in the book around self-worth, because that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for your listeners to benefit from it. Thanks again.
Man. All right, guys. Well, guys, have a blessed, inspirational day. Hopefully you found value in this. If you did, share it out and get this message to more people. I think it's probably one of the more important messages in our space that isn't talked about enough. So anyway, have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk soon. Take care.